Hey guys, it's Michael and welcome back to Box Tech. Today, I want to give my first impressions of the new Zcam E2 M4. Yet again, still quite a mouthful for a bunch of names, but anyways, this is the new one that they released. It's a little bit cheaper than the original Zcam E2, and it has some of the newer features as well, like a new button configuration, as a changeable plate here, so you can see that you can actually change the mounting plate to accommodate different type of lenses. Right now, I still have the stock one, so this fits micro four thirds, and I'm actually just using a very old lens. This is a Panasonic 25mm lens. So this is something that I had in the back, and I still haven't found the time to get the proper lenses and everything for this. But what I want to do with this video is give you an initial impression of what I thought about the camera, what's new, what's good, what I didn't really like, and some of the comments going forward, and try to answer some of your questions as well. Now, before we start, I definitely want to go into the background of my background because it kind of determines the angle at which I approach this. So for me personally, I've been working and doing YouTube videos for the past 4 years on my main channel, Box Mining. You can check that out. It's got 200,000 subscribers at this current point. And it's very much a topic motivated channel. So it was all about cryptocurrencies. And then gradually I started learning how to make videos and, try out different cameras. And my personal experience has always been around the Sony ecosystem. So right now, even now, I'm filming with the Sony a7 III. I have a mini RX100 here. That's what I started off with. And then also have a 6400 for vlogging. So a6400. The main purpose of me buying this camera is to just kind of learn cinematography, learn a little bit more, just get a little bit more into film. And that was the main purpose, the main driver. I've never had, I never went to film school. My background is all the way in science, very, very hardcore into science. But what I've realized is like, why go to film school when you can just buy a camera, go on YouTube and learn how to use one of these things? And that's kind of the spirit of this. I mean, it's actually much cheaper to do that way anyways. So this is how I got this, and my initial expressions of this were actually pretty interesting. The learning curve is definitely steeper than a Sony camera, mostly because obviously this is a cinema grade camera. So there's kind of less convenience features if you say it so. The autofocus does work. So I've initially when I try to vlog style autofocus, it's a little bit harder to pull focus just because of the lens. I think more attributes to the lens. But when I tried to use the autofocus when filming people that are around 1 to 2 meters away, the autofocus did pull focus really well. It's not as crazy fast as the Sony. So Sony, they have the face detect and also they have eye detect if you're taking photos. That was super fast on Sony lenses. Here, you can see it's trying to pull focus and you can kind of see that progress going on. So in terms of ease to use, it's not as convenient as a Sony, but definitely not lacking. The issue here is I've watched a lot of videos and there's a lot of kind of camera guys pulling focus manually. And definitely you can rely on the autofocus on this camera. It's good enough. I did notice some hunting, so I'll probably show some clips later on of when kind of it was hunting for focus depending on how I pointed the camera, and there are options to lock that as well. So I've actually bound it to one of these user-made function buttons. Anyways, without going too much, let's actually take a look at the camera first. So in terms of weight and functionality, I find that this actually kind of weighs a bit. It feels good, but at the same time, the size is small enough to fit into a usual camera bag, etc. In terms of functionality, right here, you have the on-off button on the bottom, and then you have 4 custom buttons that you can set to whatever you want. So new users to the camera probably will find this a little bit unfriendly because it's not labeled what it is. You have to label it yourself, technically. You have to kind of set these yourself and label it yourself. And that's the design of it. It's like custom buttons are for people who use this camera a lot and they know what they're doing. And I think this is a great addition. On the top plate, you actually only have 5 buttons as well. You got menu, function, your up, down, set button, and your OK button. And technically, got a giant record button over here. In terms of what you're doing, let me just power the camera on for a sec. Once you have the buttons pressed, you can actually do a preview and you can relatively quickly set your focus, your aperture, your shutter speed, and also your ISO relatively quickly on these. I found buttons for the ISO and for the shutter speed on the side, so I can very quickly switch between that really quickly. There is a preview on top, so it took me some time to figure it out, but you have to press menu and function to switch between these things. So one option of getting around the smaller display screen is to use your mobile phone. So I actually managed to install the app on my Android phone, and it actually works very well. I actually found the pairing process quite easy. And recently, I know there's an Android issue with this, where if they don't detect there is internet on the Wi-Fi, ask you if you want to disconnect or not. It's quite annoying. But if you just keep saying, keep on this internet, keep on this Wi-Fi rather, you'll actually be able to connect to the camera, and it's actually very smooth. I actually found the experience surprisingly even better than a Sony. Sony, I don't know why Imaging Edge doesn't work very well. There's a lot of laggy performance issues here, but with the Zcam, it does work well. I found that with the Wi-Fi, you don't really fully need the antenna. So there's an optional antenna attachment onto here. You don't really need it all the time especially if you're very close, if you're mounted very close by, or if you're just like 1 meter or less away, the performance is absolutely fine. You don't really need the extender until you get into the complicated stages. But Wi-Fi is definitely an option, or you can go for an external monitor, which I will buy very soon to get the full view. You definitely can't really detect with this small window, you cannot see if you're in the perfect focus or not, which is why you definitely need the external monitor. It's way too small. Even if you squint, you cannot see if you have the perfect focus or not. And that's why it's much more recommended to get the external monitor for everything. Now, in terms of recording media, so it has a CFast slot over here. And CFast cards are, well, extremely fast, but they're also very expensive in terms of gigabytes per dollar. So technically what you can do is I had this available here for my personal work, which is I use the Samsung T5 and I connected to it via the USB handle here. What I found is that it's actually it's a good experience to use. You plug it in and you're just ready to go. And what the good thing about it is that you can just pull it out and plug it into a Mac or anything with USB Type-C, and then you can just preview the clips very easily. I found that to be a little bit even better than my SD card. I mean, sometimes just finding an SD card slot and plugging it in is annoying. Here, just like plug the cable in, you're good to go, and it works like a regular hard drive. The good and bad thing about this is that for some reason, it's not recommended. The Zcam guys did not recommend using one of these T5 drives. It might be for file formats that are like the ProRes file formats that are much larger. It's just sometimes they are drop frames. But when I tried it in H.265, it worked fine. And I'm going to stick with that for now before I dump more money on more accessories and slots for this camera. So it's okay so far, and I've seen a lot of accessories with the T5, but it's not fully recommended / supported by the company. All right, let's talk about inputs and outputs for this camera. So to give you a better view, here's the left-hand side. You get the auxiliary 12-volt out, where you can power your other accessories with power coming from this camera. You also got a remote slot. Here you have an XLR. So this is a mini XLR input for your microphones if you have the expansion. They don't include the adapter here. So I'm actually still trying to look and buy the mini XLR adapter to get some sound in. We also have 2 control slots. So these are really great if you want to mount an external monitor with a touchscreen on. You can use these control mounts to actually control the camera, which is pretty good. Now on the right-hand side, you have the Wi-Fi. So this is for attaching an antenna if you want. So you can just stick an antenna onto here to boost that Wi-Fi signal. Technically, for me, I actually found the Wi-Fi to be okay for a 1 meter distance without the connector, without the external antenna. And, I found just carrying around extra accessories a little bit excessive. So it's still okay to function without the antenna. We do have also the Ethernet port, and this is one of the main reasons why I bought this camera. It's because I can directly live stream with it. So you can plug this into your router right now. You do need a computer to process the signal, but in the future, they promise that we can directly stream onto YouTube, onto Facebook, etc. And that's going to be an exciting update for this camera. We also have down here, which is the USB Type-C, and can actually use that with your Samsung T5 or other SSDs if you want. And then finally, you also have a power input as well. So this is your power input for if you want to install a DTAP or a large juice pack on top. Let me just give you a view of what's on top with the function buttons and the screen and everything so you can see myself here. It's probably like a little bit hard with the camera. Can't really zoom out that well, but that's what it looks up on top. On the side here, on the side panel, on the right-hand side, we also have a cover that covers up your headphone jack and your microphone slot. So if you just have a normal mic, you can also plug it into camera to make that work. Now that's all for inputs and outputs actually. So on the other side, it's just mounting brackets and holes. On the other side here, there's just mounting brackets, and that's pretty much it. You have the CFast slot, which we covered already. And on the bottom, it's just mounting brackets. So that's all for the inputs and outputs of this camera. I did say I'm just having giving you guys a better look. These are detachable. So if you have a screwdriver, you can detach these plates to change into different mounts. And they did promise that they're going to get emails, Sony emails soon. And that's something that I am looking forward to because yeah, I'm pretty deep into the Sony ecosystem and I would love to use my Sony lenses like this one over here on this camera. So I can save a little bit of money. So I'm looking forward to that as well. In terms of accessories, I am trying to get a bunch of accessories over time. I found that with this type of camera, with this type of gear setup, you definitely want a cage. You want holders on the side. It all costs money. So something that I am shopping for. And if you guys are experienced Zcam users, do tell me which cage you guys got, whether it's a small rig or another different brand. I'm currently looking at the small rig set. It's roughly, a few $100 for it. But tell me if you guys found better experiences with the small rig sets, etc. What I did find out is that this camera size is exactly like the other in the E2 lineup. So you can actually use cages that are designed for the previous generation of cameras, and that fits perfectly on these cameras. So that's why I'm kind of asking and looking for advice if you guys have a particular brand you found particularly good. In terms of real life usage, I'll put some footage up as well in a sec, and I'll put them in full 4K to show you guys what it looks like coming from the camera. In terms of the footage, I have kind of a different combination footage that I shot on the same day. So some of it was in one try. Using the same lens, it was just street traffic footage, and also had footage of a video that was being made in the Bitcoin Center there. So it was kind of a video format. I was a secondary camera, I was pointing the camera up. There were two options, obviously. One was handheld, and you can see that there is vibrations. My hands aren't that steady. And because it doesn't have optical stabilization, it's not going to be as smooth as coming from a Sony. But when you sit it down and you kind of position it in a very stable position, the footage, it looks pretty amazing. Now, this concludes the mini kind of initial impressions for this camera. I definitely find it a good learning experience so far to learn more about cinema grade cameras. I've been reading a lot of comments as well about Zcam recently, especially there was a video done by Gerald Undone, and then it kind of set the community on fire between the people who really love the camera versus some people who are like skeptical about it. And I found it was very interesting because Gerald didn't fully like the camera. Something I do want to comment is that for me personally, it depends on what you're looking for. For me, I don't mind having more constant firmware updates, having kind of almost be like a tester for the camera, because obviously by doing so, I get more upgrades. So it really depends on the frame of mind you're in. And I've had a lot of experience with that in the past with anything made in China. Yeah, a lot of it is very experimental. It's not there, done and deal. You have to kind of upgrade your firmware every few weeks, and that's kind of the case and I've been seeing for this camera. With other cameras like the Sony cameras, you barely have any firmware upgrades. It's just like it's kind of good from the start and don't expect any support in the future. And I feel like that's kind of the philosophy changes that you'll probably have to get when you first jump into this ecosystem. Anyways, guys, I love to hear what else you want to know, what lenses. If you have any lens recommendations, do shoot them down below. And what else you want to see and like see what the lens mount changing process is like. I'll probably put that in a future video. And guys, of course, make sure you like and subscribe to this channel. I'm getting this started and I'm trying to make more videos more frequently. We're all talking about technology, various products, and cameras. So that's what this channel is all going to be about. And if you're interested in cryptocurrencies, check out the main box mining channel as well. And with that, guys, Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.